So somebody is playing music on a speaker somewhere in the background, and I am just hoping it's not loud enough to get this video copyright struck. So you thought that we were done talking about Ryan Haywood? Well, guess again. So granted, at this point, we are having to take things at face value, and before we get into this video, as usual, always please like and subscribe to the channel, but additionally, be aware that this particular update is something that we have to take completely on faith. Okay, there's basically no corroborating evidence for this person coming forward and sharing details about Ryan Haywood, but like we said in a couple of the comments, we're going to do our best to stay on top of the evolving situation. And even if it's something that ends up being disproven, even if it's something that ends up being less bad than it sounds, even if it's something where this person is completely pulling it out of thin air and completely making it up, as I said, we're trying to stay on top of this and we're trying to give you updates as they come out. So without further ado, we're going to briefly talk about the latest update on Ryan Haywood, which came from a Reddit post on the r/Roosterteeth subreddit about 5 hours ago. So the title is just, another person has come forward about their experience with Ryan, and I'm going to read you the full excerpt of their quote unquote experience, because again, we are taking them at their word for this. And this is going to be a little bit of a long quote because it's a pretty long stanza, to say the least, so bear with me. Quote, I joined the Roosterteeth community around early 2015. You probably knew me around Twitter/Twitch/literally everything as I'm Kayla Marie. And joined Ryan's stream community in 2017 where I was fairly active for 2 years. In early 2018, after talking semi-regularly on Snapchat, my conversations with Ryan turned very flirty very fast. I did send the first non-nude photo of a photo shoot I had done, thinking he's married and he's connected with other ladies who cosplay/model professionally, so I'm sure it will be okay. However, almost immediately the conversation turned suggestive, where, brief side note, again, please bear in mind that there are no pictures or snapshots of DMs corroborating this. We are taking her at her word for it. This only escalated when he asked if I was into guys or girls, and I replied that I wasn't sure because I was still exploring my sexuality. I have heard from several other victims that up until then he had assumed I was gay, which makes me wonder if that was why he never tried anything before that moment. At the time, I was on the back end of one of the worst depressive episodes I had ever been in, and to have one of my idols express that kind of an interest in me was one of the only good things in my life, so I encouraged it. I was lonely and desperate for anyone to care about me, and no one had ever expressed that much of an interest in me sexually. For an idea of how fast it progressed, within 24 hours after the first flirty text, I received a dick picture. He gave me the same story that he's given many other victims, that he loved his wife but he wasn't satisfied sexually, and I ate it up. Because I was an Austin local at the time, I am not anymore. We did meet up a couple of weeks later and did have sex. Almost immediately after, I felt emotionally and almost physically ill because I'd never been the kind of person to do something like that. However, I was afraid that if I tried to back out of whatever we had going on, that he would use his power to drag my name through the mud, or that if the community found out, they would do so. So I allowed him to keep sending me nude photos and sent some back in return. I was so desperate to be liked and was willing to do anything for it. We did sleep together 2 more times over the course of the whole year, once after RTX 2018 and once again in December, after which I got up the courage to slowly cease all conversations with him. Because I unfriended him on Snapchat, I was unfortunately unable to keep any evidence of our conversations, which, yes, I know what you're going to think, that sounds pretty convenient. However, I do have people who can vouch that I was involved. I debated re-adding him to try and get our chats back, but I've seen firsthand the messages he sent to those of us who have done that, and I know it would not be good for my mental health. The other victims have already mentioned this, but it does seem that he likes to prey on girls with mental health issues. I have heard from several other victims that during my breakdown in 2017, he was telling multiple people in the community that I was a crazy psycho, including my best friend, who thankfully kept me in the dark to not negatively affect my already borderline suicidal state. The other victims have also come to realize that he made all of us think that we were the only ones he was doing this with, possibly so that we would be scared to ever come forward. Before this last week, I only knew of one other person that he had been involved with. Many of us victims have also realized that we spent years hating each other solely based on things Ryan told us. We've even figured out that he slept with some of us within days of each other, oftentimes over event weekends, but not always. I would also like to note that during the height of all this, if I ever tried to have a conversation about something unrelated, he would be very dismissive and really only wanted to talk to me for sex. He was oftentimes very dismissive of issues I had with feeling bullied by other people in his community and the Roosterteeth community as a whole, even before everything started. Another community member, Kate/Trickstress, posted a thread on Twitter/Reddit about how she had brought up concerns about a community member after being bullied that Ryan dismissed. I was that community member. This bullying situation was eventually led to my borderline mental breakdown in 2017. I have spent the last 2 years hating myself on so many levels for my part in this. I've spent nights breaking down to my friends and family and being unable to tell them why. I'm scared to be physically intimate with anyone because I feel this sixth sense of shame about it. When the first victim came forward, I wasn't going to contact anyone because I still believed that I was the one to blame. I was 23/24 during this time, and nothing we did was done without my consent. However, meeting the other victims has opened my eyes to just how horrible this whole situation is. I still feel strong bouts of hatred towards myself because of this, but I am finally slowly starting to heal. If I had known it was not just me that this was happening to, I would have come forward sooner or kept physical evidence of our conversations. However, I hope this story can be used to validate the other victims' experiences, including those who have not yet come forward, and to bring justice to the people who were affected by this. Love to you all, Kayla. P.S. I know I very much word vomited, so for the people who like to see things in a more linear fashion, here's a TLDR timeline of the events leading up to the sexting. And right here, there's an image of just kind of her general timeline of, just kind of summarizing what we just talked about in less detail. So, as I said at the beginning, this is a update that we just wanted to give you guys because we do think that it is important to keep people updated on the evolving situation, because the more and more stuff that comes forward about Ryan Haywood, whether you're talking about physical evidence, whether you're talking about fabrications by 4chan, whether you're talking about just these stories from, quote unquote victims that we cannot confirm or deny because we're not physically connected or personally connected with them, you have to take a grain of salt with all of it, right? Because you do also have to understand that Ryan Haywood is a very popular person who works for a very popular internet company who has been established as this community member and as a content creator for, years and years at this point. But that grain of salt also needs to be applied to thinking that Ryan could be innocent in this. And I need to explain that very quickly because apparently I didn't do a very good job of explaining that in my last video. The fact of the matter is, Ryan admitted to being involved with this stuff, okay? He admitted to making the mistakes. He admitted to sleeping with other girls. He admitted to doing this. Now, like I said in my previous video, as far as I'm aware, there's no claims that he was, that he raped anyone. There's no claims that he, sexually molested anyone. There's no claims that he, actively sought out, people who were underage. Rather, he just seemed to have targeted people that had mental health issues. But nonetheless, even when you discount all of that, even when you subtract those claims and you go, well, he's not being, people aren't saying that he raped them, that's not necessarily an endorsement of his character at this point. Because, like I said, not only has he admitted to this, but if these people who are coming forward are indeed the people that he affected and they are indeed telling the truth, then this paints Ryan as a literal predator who was going out of his way to find girls who had mental health issues, to find girls who were borderline suicidal, if Kayla is to be believed, and basically preyed on their insecurities and preyed on their, relative naivete when it came to sex and when it came to life and when it came to relationships, and he used that to the advantage of getting them to sleep with him. Now again, like I said, you obviously have to take a grain of salt when you're looking at it at both sides. But even with that grain of salt, you do have to admit that Ryan clearly is a disturbed individual who maybe is not quite as disturbed as some people are making it out to be. Where, again, we're not saying that this guy was going out and raping people and pulling Ted Bundy shit, but he is clearly somebody who utilized a very distressing methodology to get people to effectively allow him to cheat on his wife. Now, I've seen a couple of comments from people about how they're saying that, well, you have to take into account that Ryan is, unexperienced when it comes to sex, when for the previous girl who was saying how it was a very unpleasant experience for her. First of all, the guy has 3 kids. He knows how sex works. Please don't make that excuse for Ryan. Secondly, let's assume, and again, I need to emphasize that as strongly as I can, assume, okay? That doesn't mean that it's true. That doesn't mean that it's untrue. Let's assume that 20% of the claims against Ryan are true in terms of the victims who are coming forward. That would still mean this guy is very clearly aware of how sex works and is very clearly experienced with it and knows what he's doing. So that argument immediately falls apart, not only with the evidence that's been presented, but with what we already knew about Ryan previous to the allegations. All I'm trying to say is that I do agree that there needs to be evidence before you just say that person's telling the truth and we need to listen to that person. You should take everything into account, and with everything being taken into account right now, the evolving puzzle of Ryan Haywood is becoming more and more distressing. Now, yes, we're going to have to wait to see what officially happens over it. You know, as of right now, the only consequence and fallout that we've seen of it is that he's been let go by Roosterteeth and he's basically stopping all of his social media, which is probably the right call, dude. But until we have another update, like I said, please comment down below. Let us know what you think of the evolving situation. Like I said, we're trying to just give you updates as this comes out. Let's try and be civil in the comments. Let's not, start fights with anyone or anything like that. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we will talk to you next time when we have another update on Ryan or Adam.